I'm Hiba Hammami.
And I'm Cody Miller.
And we are both going to be talking about the differences in protostomes and deuterostomes in early embryonic development. And on the left here, you have the protostomes that exhibit the spiral cleavage.
And on the right, we have the deuterostome that exhibit radial cleavage, where cell division takes place in parallel or perpendicular axes to the polar axis.
The protostomes and deuterostomes divide mitotically and develop into a hollow ball of cells called the blastula.
And here we see an example of involution and invagination, where there's a movement of cells into the interior of the embryo, forming a pocket which has an opening to the surface.
This is a cross-section of the protostome. The opening to the yellow lining develops, forming what is called the blastophore. This part of the development is what distinguishes the protostomes from the deuterostome. And as you can see, over here we are going to have a solid mass pictured in red, and those are the mesodermal embryonic tissues that form on the edges of the blastophore and split, forming the cellum.
Now we are back to the deuterostomes, and we can see that the outermost section is blue. This represents the ectoderm, and the yellow that he is constructing right now represents the endoderm. These red pieces he's putting on at the end are the mesoderm, which through evagination of the developed gut pinches off and forms the coelom. All these cells are similar in structure, but they will develop into different structures and organs for the deuterostomes later on in the life cycle.
And finally, to the last part about the protostomes. The removal of the yellow part doesn't mean that it's actually being removed, it just means that the cells are being flattened and extended to the edges of the blastula. The mesodermal embryonic red cells that you can see at the bottom also multiply and extend. The main difference between the protostomes and the deuterostomes is that in the proteostomes, the mouth develops before the anus.
In deuterostomes, the endoderm also flattens out and extends to the edges of the blastula. The outermost layer which is represented by the blue, is the ectoderm, which will differentiate into the nervous system, the epidermis, and the lining of the mouth. The yellow section, which is the endoderm, turns into the gastrointestinal tract, respiratory tract, and the endocrine glands. The red indicates the mesoderm, which turns into muscle, bone tissue, and cartilage.
Hey y'all, I'll be talking to you about barnacles today, a protostome belonging to the subclass Cirripedia and order Cecilia. These critters are found in shallow waters and have three major life cycles, the first two being free-floating larval stages, and the third is a kind of stuck in one spot for the rest of my life kind of stage. To attract new partners, these mature barnacles secrete compounds to draw larvae close to them, kind of like that old pervert luring kids to his shady white van. Now to discuss barnacle sex. You see, barnacles happen to have the longest penis in proportion to its body size than any other animal. They're also hermaphrodites, meaning they have both male and female parts, in case they get lonely. Attracting a potential mate can be very complex for barnacles since they're extremely particular. Nah, just kidding. Barnacles have sex with anything they can get their penis on. They're pretty much stuck in one spot, remember? This also explains why they have such strong, stretchable penises, and why it can maneuver kind of like a little penis arm. Oh, what's that? A little too much on the penis? Sorry. The ramrod can also be used indirectly by releasing sperm into the water in a method called sperm casting, kind of like a little penis hose, which floats through the water to fertilize a female's egg. Once mating season's over, the ramrod is ejected and thrown away, kind of like a pipette tip. Don't worry, a new one will grow back next year.
Hello, and welcome to Science Talk. Today we talk reproduction, fertilization, and the deuterostome sea urchin. What is this curious fellow doing? Is he smoking? Is he on fire? How is there fire underwater? I'm merely kidding. He's releasing his gametes, the sperm, and the egg, for external fertilization. It is important here to keep in mind the structures of both egg and sperm, as they will influence each other for restructure. Inside of the egg, shown here, is the egg plasma contained by the egg plasma membrane, a space, and then the Vitalian membrane. Outside of that, the jelly coat. Contained within the egg plasma membrane are cortical granules, key players for restructure. To the sperm, the tail, mid-piece, and head containing DNA. As it comes in contact with the jelly coat, more ATP it says. It does it. Longer nose it says, also known as acrosomal tip. It does it. Then the sperm drives and makes contact. As contact happens, many things happen simultaneously. Shown here is a closer view. At the top is the mid-piece of the sperm. The outside membrane is no longer the Vitalian, it is the fertilization. Space between the egg plasma membrane and the fertilization has increased. That's due to those cortical granules releasing, exocytosing their contents, raising the calcium concentration. Where's the head to the sperm, one might ask? It's gone. It's been degraded so that the DNA can be delivered. So what happens now, O great giver of life? We must close the metaphorical sperm door, 'cause if you're a sperm, you do not want your friends following you. I know I told you earlier that the sperm was degraded and gone. Part of it was saved to close this door, to patch this membrane. Here we are now, door closed, pro-nuclei delivered. This means Sengami. Sengami was taught to me by my professor, a one Dr. Kathy McDowell, who says that when two pro-nuclei are contained within one cell, you have Sengami. Who remembers those key players from earlier? That's right, the cortical granules. Due to their releasing and exocytosing, it has influenced the entire surface of the egg to lead to blocks of polyspermy. How many of you have more than one father? Not biologically. The illustration here, the Starship Enterprise, the torpedoes no longer allowed to cross the force field. Think of the ship as the DNA. And the torpedoes, as the many other sperm cells present, no longer allowed to cross. I want to thank you for listening to me today, for having me in your thoughts. Stay busy, do well, and be fruitful. Special guest in the studio with me today, Steve. Steve's telling us about a pretty interesting creature here. Introduce us to the species, Steve. What are we talking about?
Hey Jordan, today we're talking about anglerfish. This organism is a deuterostome, phylum Chordata, class Actinopterygii.
Okay, well let's start with some of the basics. For example, if I wanted to find one of these or maybe observe it in its natural habitat, well, where am I heading?
You're heading deep in the depth up to a mile below the sea level. Total darkness, referred as a midnight zone. Dark, cold, and lonely. Hard to find a girlfriend.
Yeah, hard enough in the light for me. Speaking of light, now this is no video effect. This fish is actually producing this light. Tell us a little bit about that.
Correct. It produces bioluminescent bacteria. Actually lives inside the fish. And it's used for its prey to feed on.
Right. So it's like a mutualistic relationship. A lot of times you say bacteria, people think harm, but this one's actually they're benefiting from each other. I get it. Okay. So they use that for finding food. Is that the same for finding a mate? They use the same process there?
No, actually, male comes with a complex olfactory organ, and he picks up on the female's pheromone smell, and that's where the attraction happens.
All right. Yeah, and I guess no better way to understand that than to observe it.
That is correct. Love at first sight.
She don't like her eggs all runny. She thinks crossing her legs is funny. She looks down her nose at money. She gets it on like the Easter bunny. She's my baby, I'm her honey. I'm never gonna let her go.
Great song. Even more of an interesting process there. Now, that little fish is the male fish. Let's start with the most obvious question. Is he dead?
It does look like it, but no, Jordan, he's alive and well. He has those specialized teeth. He takes a chunk of that, and he never lets go. He releases the enzyme, releases his organs into the female, and with the exception of one, gonads.
So it's a real bite for life, if you will. And even though you say he's alive and well, probably wishing for death sometime soon. Anyway, I think that's all the time we got. Thanks for coming in, Steve. Thanks for tuning in, people. Anglerfish, look out for him. Hot topic. We'll catch you next time.